There it is.
Okay.
Christian Slater. Mr. Robot has become quite a sensation, hasn't it? And we've discovered so many things about your character and about the other characters as we've gone on this really amazing journey. Can you tell us, can you take us back to the beginning? What were your expectations when you got this role?
Just first of all, let's see. I read the script. When I saw the title, I was definitely suspicious. I was probably like a little worried about it. Like, oh God, what is this going to be? Am I going to be playing some dude in the future who's animatronic and just nonsense? My imagination went all over the place. I pictured sort of a Bananas type situation, like that Woody Allen movie. And then I read the script and got immediately intrigued about it, and I had a lot of questions. I thought it was a subject matter that hadn't been tackled in quite this way before. And then I found out the director was Nils, who directed The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and I was a huge fan of that. So I got very excited about that. I didn't know a great deal about Sam Esmail or Chad Hamilton from Anonymous Content, but they had done True Detective, so there was definitely a track record there. So I went and sat down with Sam and those two guys, and Sam just kind of laid it all out for me. I had certain questions about who this character was, and Sam said, "Do you really want to know?" And I said, "Yes." And he spelled it all out for me and just gave me answers that I couldn't really have anticipated or expected, and I just found them all to be very intriguing and very surprising.
And so USA Network then renewed the show for season 2 before it had even premiered. So there was some buzz about it. It had played at film festivals. It was starting to get some buzz. When did you sense that this was going to hit a nerve with audiences? Because it really has, hasn't it?
Well, certainly around the time, we filmed the pilot, and it definitely wasn't a subject that was at the forefront of anybody's brain, hacking, and nobody was really paying too close attention. But then the Sony hack happened, and I think it pretty much happened on the same day that USA made the decision to pick up the next 9 episodes. So that was interesting, and all this stuff was going on in the media, and then we were filming the show and mirroring so many of the things that were happening. We'd be filming a scene, and something would happen the next day in the news that really did mirror what we had just shot. So there was definitely a synergy that was happening that was unique and very different, and it was great for the show on the one hand, and also frightening that it was happening in the world. It was making us all feel a little nervous and a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you mentioned the Sony hack, and there have been other hacks like the Ashley Madison one, which was actually even referenced in the show. Anonymous have threatened to hack ISIS. It's becoming really common these days. Yeah. Given that you're involved in a show that talks about that phenomenon, are you now more paranoid about your privacy and security? Has it made you more attuned?
I think it certainly has made me more attuned to all of that stuff, social media, the organization Anonymous. I think I'm a huge fan. Just raising my level of awareness on all levels of, how our, banking is done, and just paying much more attention to all those aspects, and updating passwords, and just making sure that I don't use my pets' names or things like that, and use things that are a little trickier.
Yeah, see, so Mr. Robot is really, it's performing a service for all of us, which is wonderful. Thank you.
Raising levels of awareness, absolutely.
Absolutely. Now, it's really hard to have interviews with people from your show without spoiling things, so anyone watching this and who hasn't seen it all, I'm sorry, you're probably better off just turning this off for now, because we really do need to go there. A lot of people do want to talk about some of the stuff that happened in those last few episodes, which kind of blew my mind and a lot of other people's. I remember reading so many articles at the time where people were just, not shocked. We kind of saw a lot of it coming, but just the way in which it was done was so amazing. So let's go back to those twists, because when we discovered the real identity of your character on the show. What reactions were you getting? What feedback?
People, like you said, I mean, there was definitely a sense all along that there was something going on. I mean, I even had a sense from the pilot, and that was one of the questions that I asked Sam first off. But yeah, like I think Sam wanted to create the atmosphere where the audience would be a little bit ahead of even Elliot. They wanted to just give them the sense. But fortunately, there were enough other kind of surprises and things that people just had no idea were coming, which made it, I think, that much more exciting and interesting. I mean, even for me. I mean, this was like one of those shows where you would go to the table reads and watch people who didn't know what was coming and just listen to their reactions and their jaws dropping and going, oh my God, I didn't see that. They were definitely fun table reads to be a part of. I mean, the hardest thing, of course, also was just holding my cards close and not being able to talk with people about it. I mean, that was probably the biggest and most frustrating aspect of it, because when the shows did start to air and people I work with, or I'd walk down the street and people would want to know what was going on and not being able to tell them.
Yeah, and I admit that maybe I was a little naive, but after episode 8, and when I discovered, oh, okay, so that's his father, that makes sense. We saw the photos from the CD. Okay, cool, that's really interesting. You had the scene in episode 9 at the table in his house where Rami's character Elliot is yelling at you, and he's very shocked and he's very annoyed. I thought, okay, cool, all right, we've got it now. He's not a Tyler Durden, it's all good, we can just move on. And then bang, you get another one. I think that's what really got us all, because it's like, no, we're gonna get you again.
Yeah.
And it was, that graveyard, the scene at the graveyard at the cemetery was particularly strong in terms of just getting a lot of that information out. Can you take us back to filming that particular scene? You've got there's a few of you from the cast in it, but it was really between you and Rami, and it was really powerful.
Thanks. Yeah, that was great. Great to be a part of it. The whole journey up to that scene was very powerful, and again, I mean, it was just an interesting. Not only was it interesting at times to be at the read-throughs, but then it was interesting to be filming some of the scenes and then looking around and seeing the crew having questions about what was going on, because they weren't privy to the whole picture while we were filming, so they were just getting like the little tidbits as we were going along. And one of the guys on the crew, the sound guy, I guess, he had a particularly relatable, in some fashion, relationship. I mean, that father-son relationship is so powerful and so deeply entrenched with emotions that, while we were filming that scene, I mean, this guy, you could tell, was visibly shaken and feeling the impact of all those emotions. I mean, it was one of those things where I think a lot of people, took a moment afterwards to check in with their family members.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And not only is that relationship really spotlighted, but there are other themes in the show about, about dissociative disorder and obviously the hacking element. There's a lot of stuff going on there. Is there anything else in particular that this show explores that has really affected you, or that you have really clinged onto as in terms of how you formed this character and who he is?
Well, I mean, there were certainly things while we were filming that we had to be very particular about, how much I said, when I said things, because as much as Sam wanted the audience to be in on it, he also wanted to kind of keep that ball afloat at the same time as well. So, we just had to be very careful about how much involvement I would have in the scenes, how people would look through me to Elliot. But yeah, and also I certainly related to that father-son relationship aspect. I mean, I certainly felt that very deeply, and just that feeling of wanting to connect and reach out, and because you don't know how long none of us really know how long we're going to be here, and it's important to maintain those relationships and stay as connected as you possibly can, and I suppose hug your parents as often as possible.
Yeah, I think that's a very good lesson to learn from the show. Give us an example of and you've probably gone through this so many times before, but it's so fascinating for us. Give us an example of the logistics of filming with Rami when you have to, like, obviously you're not really there and you're only in his head and no one else can see you. Like, how hard was that to be directed? Like, was it very meticulous, or was it just kind of go for it, guys, and just work it out?
I mean, on the one hand, it was very meticulous, but, well, I guess in the big scope of it, it was very meticulous looking back on it, because Sam Esmail had really mapped out the whole thing from point A to point Z, and, well, I guess actually probably point F, because we still have further to go. But yeah, he had really sort of locked down all the beats, and honestly, I mean, one of the things that he likes to do, with the actors before we start shooting is really give them the full overview and what the arc is going to be, and really it didn't veer too much from that original trajectory. He stayed true to that original vision, and USA and anonymous content allowed him to stay true to that original vision, and I'm certainly grateful that they did.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, have you seen the show completely now? I read an article a few months ago where you mentioned you hadn't watched it at all. You've seen it now, right?
Yeah, I did. I was taking a trip to Europe with Rami and Sam, and I figured, okay, I'm going to be on the plane with these guys. If I haven't seen the show, that's going to be a little awkward. So I finally decided to sit down and watch it, and it really pulled me in, regardless of whether or not I was in it or not. I loved Martin's performance, and Carly's, and Portia's, and there were so many other intriguing storylines that were going on while we were going through our stuff that I just found it. I thought it was beautifully shot. I think Todd Holland did a great job, and the cinematography is beautiful, and it's just on so many levels. The angles, it pulled me in.
Yeah, everyone has a good reason. People who love the show have a reason for it. My reason is particularly because it's so cinematic. It's so beautifully shot. The music, everything about the way it's done and put together is so unusual and cinematic. And I love letting it wash over me. I was just explaining that to a friend yesterday. Yeah. Did you find when you had finally seen it, were you surprised, given that you were so involved in making it, but you had not seen it yet on the screen?
I was, because I'd heard so many things about it at that point, and I thought, come on, it wasn't going to live up to the things that I'd heard. But look, Rami's an amazing actor, and watching his performance and this character of Elliot and what he goes through in this show and the journey that he takes is so monumental and such a phenomenal opportunity for an actor that I mean, just watching it for his performance alone, I got drawn in. And he's such a magnetic person and character, and so full of. I mean, he's the total opposite of Elliot, in a lot of ways, but is able to create such a humanness with the character that it really makes him so relatable. That I love him as an actor. I love playing his father, and I love being around him.
Yeah, and if you had to ask him a question about something that happens on set or something about what you guys get up to on set, what would you ask him?
This is Rami?
Yeah. Well, we're talking to him tomorrow, so I thought, why not? I'll just say, Christian has a really interesting question for you, and it's this. I'm putting you on the spot.
Oh, man. Well, I guess I'd ask him if he'd spoken to Sam yet, and I'd want to know how he feels about
wow. Oh, God.
What is coming.
You're blowing my mind, man. That's just, you're killing me. Well, given that, okay, look, I don't know. Look, I think you should just completely come clean and spill the beans and tell us what you can, what you're allowed to tell us about Season 2, because we're all very excited and we're in anticipation of what to expect.
I mean, honestly, I
say nothing.
Say anything. I wouldn't want to rob you of the
True.
experience that I just had, because it's a great experience.
And, well, can you at least tell us if it will be very different in terms of the way it looks and the way it's made?
No, I think Sam is, again, very, very particular, very, very specific. I think that they worked very hard on creating a specific style for the show and how it was going to be shot. So I think they like the look that Mr. Robot has, and will do their best to stay true to that as much as possible.
Awesome. And finally, given that Mr. Robot is now on it's award season, Golden Globes and SAGs are coming up, and Mr. Robot is a show that many of us think will get the attention of awards voters, and generally they go for actors on the show who have particular characters and scenes that are memorable. And for you, I think obviously episode 9, especially the beginning of that episode where we learn so much about Mr. Robot, we go back in time.
Yeah.
And that was all it really focuses on that father-son relationship as well, and it really affected me. I really thought it was very powerful. Tell us about that particular scene and whether that was one of the highlights for you.
It was, without a doubt. I just remember, coming to the set that day and seeing that shop for the first time, and peeling those labels off the discs. There was so much attention to detail there that I just loved it. And then, the relationship, again, between a father and a son, it's so important and so powerful. And, you just see the building blocks of that foundation being started, and that love, and how this particular father, did stick up for his son in his own sort of quirky, odd way. I loved it. I really. He gave me some specific notes, and he really had to, because I've been in one particular gear, sort of playing the image of what Elliot thought his father would act like and be like, and now I was actually playing the father, and I don't believe that the real guy is quite as suave, sophisticated, and smooth as Elliot's image of him would be. So those were all good discussions to have.
And Christian, you are obviously a very well-known actor. You've been around for a very long time. You've kind of seen it all. And for those of us who have been following your career, it's really nice to see you doing a show like this, which is really kind of exploring interesting, different ideas. And so we really do wish you all the best, and good luck for the upcoming award season.
Thank you so much, man. No, I really appreciate it. I'm glad that we had the opportunity to take this time. All right, that's great.